Hello and welcome to Mangatora 96, and today we're going to talk about Eden Zero. This video won't be focused on one group like the previous Eden Zero video was, where I specifically focused on the crew of Eden Zero. Here I will be focusing on 4 characters that I wanted to talk about, but I didn't feel like they deserved a video respectively, so I will cover them in this video. I will give a brief overview on those characters. Also, I will go over their personalities, and finally, I will cover their past before their introduction in the story. This video contains a lot of spoilers, so if you don't want to be spoiled, stop right here in the video. For everyone else, let's start with Urza Scarlet. Sorry, I meant Elsie Crimson, but seriously, Mashima really didn't put much effort into designing this character, as the character design is Urza with different clothes. And even the name isn't drastically different. Well, moving on. Elsie Crimson, also known as the Armored Space Pirate, is a former princess of an unnamed planet in the Kaida cosmos, one of the Orasian Seis Galactica, the captain of the pirate ship Skull Ferry, and the leader of her own pirate crew, as well as a fleet of space pirates. As for her personality, Elsie is a roguish yet good-spirited pirate who loves excitement. She appears to enjoy terrorizing her captivates out of mischief instead of genuine malice, although it is ambiguous how much this is actually the case, as she admits to half-jokingly about selling Shiki and his friends to Gillis when she means to help them. When faced with an activity she deems to be boring, she adds a degree of challenge to make it more enjoyable for herself, such as watching Shiki battling an alien parasite imposter of her over possession of the Eden Zero instead of just giving it to him as intended, while also testing his abilities. Despite her behavior, Elsie has a degree of honor. She is extremely loyal to Ziggy, faithfully following his request to deliver his ship to his grandson out of a debt of gratitude, and regards him as a very good friend, enough to regard him by his real name rather than his title of Great Demon King. However, she also aims to surpass Ziggy in some manner. When Elsie found out about Ziggy's change in demeanor, she expressed great sadness and disbelief at his hostility towards his own grandson and old warship. As a captain, Elsie is firm but kind towards her crew, allowing them periods of rest and recreation. She does, however, threatened to cut one of her crew in half for shouting. She also has standards against her crew taking pictures of Rebecca being molested by tentacles. She also maintains a certain rivalry with Justice, which she treats more playfully than he does. Elsie sports a self-satisfying grin when Jessie and her other subordinates explain how she became a pirate, which Rebecca noticed. As for her backstory, Elsie was once a princess of a kingdom on an unnamed planet located somewhere in the Kaida cosmos. She was betrothed to James Holloway at a young age, who was a prince from another kingdom on her planet, where their union was meant to unite both kingdoms. During their time together, Elsie proposed to James that they should kiss, flustering the young prince. He retorted that how their parents decided for them to get married so her kingdom could absorb his. But Elsie prepares for the kiss anyway. Blushing, he nervously tries, but is stopped by the young princess, saying that they should wait until they are older, flustering him more. Later on, she finds out that the government had plans which were capable of destroying the entire Kaida cosmos. Both Elsie and James came up with plans of their own to counter the government. However, Elsie had taken action first and exposed the government's plans, which resulted in a civil war on their home planet, where James and Elsie lost everything, forcing them to abandon their fatherland. Afterwards, Elsie became a refugee made homeless by the war. She aimlessly wandered the cosmos until she was picked up by the Eden Zero. She was only on the ship for a few weeks, but she got to know the crew, Ziggy and the 4 shining stars, like a family. Shiki was a baby at the time, and Elsie even changed his diapers. When they reached Ground Bell, Ziggy took Shiki in a space pod down to the planet and left the Eden Zero with Elsie. He asked her to give the ship to Shiki the day he would set out into space. After that, which disguised the ship and went into sleep mode, and the rest of the shining stars went their separate ways. However, Elsie proved rather quickly to be inadequate with machines, as she was unable to draw out the disguised Eden Zero's full abilities, and she eventually ran out of provisions. Out of desperation, Elsie started stealing from every port in the cosmos, and before she knew it, people started calling her a pirate. By the year X492, Elsie's power and notoriety earned her a spot among the Orasian Seas Galactica, where she became known as the dreaded armored space pirate who conquered the 7 cosmic seas with a fleet of space pirates at her command. Eventually, she acquired a flagship for her fleet and kept the disguised Eden Zero as a storage ship. Moving on to the guy that was called Seekheart in Rave Master, Jalal in Fairy Tail, and now is known as Justice in Eden Zero. Justice, once known as James Holloway, is a former prince from an unnamed planet in the Kaida cosmos, and a member of the Interstellar Union Army. He is also the commander of the command carrier Angel Feather and one of the Orasian Seas, Interstellar. As for his personality, Justice is shown to be a serious and determined man with no sense of humor, dedicating to capturing Elsie Crimson in his namesake. However, he has shown empathy after chiding Victory for brushing off the erasure of many Gilead citizens, even if they were criminals, by the chronophage devouring the planet's 1200 years of time, as a life is a life. Despite that, Justice is obsessed with capturing or killing Elsie, as his one and only interest due to a great loss is suffered from her in the past. It goes to the point that he is also willing to kill Shiki, who has ties with the armored space pirates, and imprisoned his friend Homura, while stating that Ziggy or Poseidon Arrow means nothing to him, despite the dire situation happening on Forestia. Justice is confident in his ability as an Ether Gear master, reminding Victory about it with a small smirk. According to Eraser, Justice is a stickler for rules. As for his backstory, it's tied to Elsie's backstory, as they were fiancés when they were young, but after Elsie started the Civil War, where James lost everything, forcing him to abandon his fatherland. As a result of the war, James abandoned his name and took on the codename Justice as his new identity upon joining the Interstellar Union Army, living up to his goal to bring justice throughout the cosmos and to capture or kill Elsie. Moving on to the first character in this video, whom Mashima didn't just copy into Eden Zero from his previous works and gave them a bit different name. I'm of course talking about Jin. Chris Rutherford, also known as Jin, is an outtake and former mercenary of the disbanded organization Rogue Out, who carried out any mission including abducting beekeepers from the planet Blue Garden. After Rogue Out disbanded, he moved on to working under Draken Joy as an assistant to his sister Clean of the Element 4. He later betrayed Draken after learning that he was sheephoning the lives of everyone living on the Bella Gore, including his own sisters. He then stayed on the Eden Zero with his sister temporarily, but after Sister Ivory fulfilled her promise to heal Clean, he joins his sister in becoming an official member of the crew of Edens. As for his personality, Jin appears to be serious and dedicated to any particular assignment he is working on, though he is a mercenary and is capable of kidnapping people without objection. He does have a degree of morality, as he isn't sadistic and doesn't go out of his way to torture them. He is also aware that he did terrible things while working under the fake sister. Jin is a loner and claims that he doesn't have friends. The only person that he has any connection with is his sister Clean. As for his backstory, as a child Chris lived with his family, which consisted of his mother, father and his sister. The Rutherford family were patrons of Miller Royal Laboratories and funded their research. However, in the year X479, after Miller was arrested, the Rutherfords found out about the truth of his research and withdraw their financial support. In the year X402, sometime after Miller escapes, the family was visited by him, where he killed his parents and kidnapped him and Clean to use as guinea pigs for his Otech experiments. He was strapped onto a cross, warning the mad scientist in vain to not hurt Clean, just as Miller is about to dismember him while forcing his sister to watch as an experiment to see how long before her emotions break down entirely. Because of the mad scientist's experiments, he became an autoct himself, with mechanics making up 60% of his body structure. Eventually, they were rescued by bill collectors under the employment of Drake and Joe. He promised his sister that he would find someone called Sister so that she could make Clean feel better and left it in search of her. At some point, Chris found Sister and began working for her in her mercenary squad Rock Out under the code name Jean, in exchange for her curing his sister of her unique disorder. And lastly, let's cover Homura's teacher and mother, who was also one of the original 4 shining stars of Eden Zero, Valkyrie. Valkyrie Yuna was a machine and formerly one of the 4 shining stars. As the Sword of Edens, she was responsible for maintaining Eden Zero's armaments. She was also the teacher of Homura Kogetsu, a member of the crew of Edens. As for her personality, according to Homura, Valkyrie was an awe-inspiring individual who had a mischievous side to her. She also had an air of intensity and was very encouraging and caring towards her pupil. She believed in the invigorating power of one's own words, as demonstrated when she first encouraged Homura to speak her mind. According to Sister Ivory, she liked to look at the stars. As for her backstory, Valkyrie was created by the former Demon King on planet Granville as a member of the Demon King's 4 shining stars. At some point on Oeda, she saved a very young Homura Kogetsu from 3 thugs who wanted to sell her on Gilist, and took her on as a disciple, training her until her sudden disappearance around the year X487. It is later revealed that the Valkyrie disappeared in order to find Homura's biological mother after suffering discrimination by the citizens of Oedo for not being an actual blood relative of Homura, which affected her young pupil. She traveled to Milden to seek Saomi to learn the location of Homura's real mother, Kurenai Kogetsu. She traveled to planet Sun Jewel, where she met Paul, who would become her disciple after being inspired by her, and later find Kurenai, who was imprisoned within the labor district. After learning that Kurenai can't return because she accumulated a huge debt at the wealthy sector casinos, Valkyrie offers to pay off her debt in her place so that she can return to Homura, which she tearfully accepts. 2 years passed and Valkyrie found out from Paul that Kurenai never returned to Homura after being freed. Instead, she became the wife of the then ruler of Sun Jewel, Baron Mordo. She killed him and seized his wealth and power for herself as the new ruler of the planet instead. Moments later, the labor district was attacked by a huge swarm of stones, provoked by Kurenai to force the laborers to mine more metals for her. It was then Valkyrie fought the source entirely on her own to protect the people of the labor district. She ultimately defeated the swarm but suffered critical damage during the fight. Thinking about Homura, she kneeled down and lamented that she never told Homura that she indeed loved her, before she finally succumbed to her wounds and died. Despite this, Valkyrie became a symbol of hope to the rebellion, with Paul forming the Valkyrie's army. With this, I covered everything I wanted on those 4 characters of Eden Zero. And that will be all for this video. If you like this video, leave a like, leave your thoughts in the comments below, or subscribe to the channel for more manga reviews and One Piece content. And until next time, take care.